Do you want to farm mobs with a digital, compact setup without having to deal with massive, lag-inducing and noisy mob farms? Then say hello to the future of mob farming with the Hostile Neural Networks mod. This mod allows you to harvest loot from 67 different mob types, including mimics, piglets, wardens, withers and the ender dragon. And the best part, you get to choose exactly which loot you collect, keeping your storage systems clean and organized. In today's video, I will guide you through the basics of the mod. Stick around until the end for a special segment where I will show you a compact setup to automate your mob farming with this mod in AllTheMods 9. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you're always better informed about mods than your friends. Let's start with the first step, getting data models. The Hostile Neural Networks mod adds something called a model framework. And you just have to right-click on any mob with this item and it turns into a data model for that specific mob type. For example, we will end up with a cow data model. Now let's train our data model. When you hold the shift key and hover over your data model, you will see some extra info. We will skip the simulation cost for now, but keep an eye on the other three values. Every data model starts at the faulty tier, making it unusable at first. To level it up, you need to land the final hit on a mob. But you can't just start killing mobs with the data models in your inventory. You need to place them in a deep learner. A single deep learner can hold up to 4 data models, allowing you to train multiple models at once. And you're actually not just limited to one deep learner. Technically, you could fill up your whole inventory, your offhand and your courier slot with them, training more than 140 models at the same time. This comes in handy especially when killing boss mobs like the Wither or the Ender Dragon. Also as a tip, when you have the data model in your hand, offhand or courier slot, you can easily keep track of your data model's progress. Now that our data models are trained, we can start generating loot. First, you will need a simulation chamber to place your data model in. Additionally, you will need a prediction matrix, or better yet, multiple matrices. Also, you will need an energy source, and a pretty strong one in some cases, since the energy requirements depends on the mob type. For example, a cow only needs about 64 FE per tick, but a wither requires 2560 FE per tick. You would need a hardened reactor from power just to have enough energy for one simulation chamber with a wither. Once we have both the matrices and the energy supplied, our simulations can start running. You can watch the progress of your simulation in the bottom right. At the end of a cycle, you will always get one generalized prediction. There are 4 types of these and they are depending on the mob type's dimension, and they can be used in a variety of recipes. But what we're really after is the mob-specific prediction, like the cow prediction in our case, which we only get when the simulation is successful. The success chance is shown by the model accuracy. An untrained basic model starts out with an accuracy of 5%. However, with each simulation attempt, the model collects more data. And with each data point, the accuracy increases. And when the bar is fully filled, we reach the next tier. However, with each tier increase, the amount of data needed also goes up. For example, reaching the advanced tier requires 300 data points, which means either running 300 simulations, which takes about 1 hour and 15 minutes in real life, or you would need to kill 30 cows, since each kill gives 10 points at this stage. I've created this chart to clarify the data point requirements and help you choose the right approach. To summarize, you will need to either wait 312 minutes, which means a bit more than 5 hours, or you would need to kill 98 mobs to fully train any mob data model. My recommendation is to use the simulation approach for hard to farm mobs like bosses, and the manual approach for easily farmable mobs. Alternatively, you could also speed up the simulation chamber by 256 times with a time in a bottle, turning those 312 minutes into maybe 1 or 2 minutes. But if you do this, make sure you have enough energy and some kind of automation for the input and output for the simulation chamber. Let's get to the fun part, making some loot. For this, we will use the loot Fabricator. We just have to add our mob predictions inside of it and connect it to an energy source. You can now choose between 2 types of loot, either 32 beef or 24 leather per prediction. When you click on one of these, the transformation will start. You can cancel it at any time by clicking on the item in the top center. Each transformation will take 3 seconds. And since one simulation chamber gives us at most 1 prediction every 15 seconds, it's normally the most efficient to have 5 simulation chambers for every loot fabricator. This is also why getting 5 data models per mob is a good idea. As mentioned in the introduction, I also prepared a small automation setup I wanted to share with you using the 5:1 ratio. This setup combines several mods, including drawers from functional storage, pipes from the pipes mod, energy transport through power, and a modular router setup. To replicate the setup for a Wither, make sure you have these items ready. Okay, and now let's get to the automation. So first off, I will finish up my drawers because mine are still empty and I wanted to make them a bit more pretty as I did on the other side. So for that, you just put the first material is the outside of the frame drawer, the second material is the inside, and then you just place the drawer. And as you can see, we have now 4 drawers, which are exactly as we want them to be. But you can also just use the basic ones. I just prefer it visually for this setup. Now I'm going to place down our first couple of blocks. For that, I will choose the simulation chambers and the frame drawers since they are the main part in the front. So we'll have a drawer right here in the center. On top of that, we have a loot fabricator. And then we have 2 simulation chambers on the side, 3 simulation chambers on the top. And then we have some more drawers on each side. So those are all the drawers you need for this. This one I have right now is only for the modular router, and we will get to that in a second. Now I'm getting our data model. So as I showed, I'm using the Wither data model. So I have to use a lot of energy and we can quickly place them down. All of them are self-aware, and 4 and 5. And that's all the data models. Okay, now if you have already the items for the drawers, it's always the easiest, but you can also do it the other way around. You let the system run for a second and then just do it manually. But if you have it, you just place down the prediction on this side. So on the left side, this can be whatever prediction you want to use. And then you use the configuration tool to lock it. That means whatever happens, like whatever items gets pushed and pulled, this will always be our Wither prediction. Then we're going to do the same thing down here for our generalized ender prediction, which is the one for the Wither. And then we're going to do the same thing on the right side for our nether star. Now we can also add our upgrades. So we have our void upgrades and our copper upgrades. In general, I always recommend to use void upgrades for any drawer you make. So just we can add it to all 3 of those because it makes sure that the items are not overfilling, which can create a lot of lag. So this way it directly destroys everything which goes over the limit, which is currently 2000 items. And we can easily increase this with copper upgrades. Copper upgrades are completely broken. You don't really need netherite upgrades. Like for most cases in the game, copper upgrades are fully enough because they multiply with each other. That means at the beginning we can now have 2000 nether stars, but if we add one more, we get 16,000, 130,000, 1 million, and then we have 8.4 million. This is way more than you most likely ever need. Even the nether star amount you need for the older Modium star is way lower than this amount. So 4 copper upgrades is for most people totally enough. And then what I would do for the generalized ender prediction is to add maybe 1 of them. This really depends. I know also people who just void completely the ender predictions because they don't want to use them. But I like the setup like this and I add 1 more. And for the predictions, you don't really need an upgrade of the size because you will normally never reach it because as long as your system doesn't break for whatever reason, like your pipes get destroyed or anything, it should always produce. And then the limit is more the nether star over the prediction. Okay, now that we're done with that, let's place down our pipes. First off, we have 1 pipe here and 1 pipe there, right next to the loot fabricator. We're going to disconnect the top piece and the bottom piece and make sure that this left side is pulling the items into the loot fabricator, which it already did. And now you can also see the drawer is still at 0 of our predictions, which is definitely helpful. And then we do the other side as well. And here it's going to pull out all the nether stars we're going to get inside of our right drawer. On the back side, we're going to place down 3 pipes at the top here and make sure that they pull out items, so like this. And at the bottom, we're also going to place down 3 more pipes, but this time it's only going to be pulling out. Here we're going to push in all the ender predictions. And then on the right one, we're going to pull out, and then we're going to place down 3 more pipes, and we don't have to change anything. This one is going to push in the items inside of this one. Now, if you want to, you can quickly close those slots up so it's a bit cleaner. The same thing on the back side, we can close those 2 up, and that way it looks a bit smoother. You can also like change the materials. I like the orange here, but it's nothing really important. Okay, and now we're going to cover the modular router. So for that, we're going to take our router, we're going to take our drawer, our upgrades, and also all the modules. Then I'm going to place down the router and place the drawer right on top of it. let's cover the modules. So first off, the most important one is the distributor module. This one is responsible for moving the predictions we're going to store inside of the drawer towards our simulation chambers. For that, you just have the module in your hand, sneak, and then right-click on your simulation chambers. In total, you can add 8 of them. We're going to need 5. So if you want to, for instance, have both of them running at the same time, you could do this by just making 2 modules and putting 2 modules inside of the modular router. So we're going to add it in, and this part is done. Then for the next module, we have the puller module. This one is responsible for moving the items out of the drawer inside of the modular router. For that, we put it here and just middle mouse click, which opens up a new UI. And then we can put here the direction from where the items should be pulled from. So we're going to move it to up, and that way all the items will get moved from up here inside of our router. Now we just have the upgrades left. Normally I like to use the muffler upgrades. Those can be stacked and 3 is the limit, which makes it that there will be no additional animations, because normally if items get moved from the router towards something or from the router towards the router, then you would see like those red lines, and I think they can also decrease your performance. So normally I just disable them with 3 of those upgrades. Additionally, you should add stack upgrades, which make it that the modular router is always pulling 1 stack at a time, which also reduces the lag because it's only doing 1 action every couple of minutes instead of always just delivering 1 item. So it's reducing lag as well. Okay, I prepared a couple of prediction matrices and we're going to add them into our frame drawer. First off, actually remove the puller if you already put it in, because otherwise it's going to start pulling already. And we can put them in, and then we can lock the drawer. That means there will always be prediction matrices inside of this drawer. And I would also add some void upgrades and also some copper upgrades, maybe even more than this. This really depends on your setup. And then we can add in our puller module back again. And as you can see, we're pulling the matrices already into the buffer, and our system up here is empty already. And now there should be 64 matrices in each of our simulation chambers. Now let's get to the last point, which is the energy. So for that, I would like to use power, and we're going to need those items as shown beforehand. The reason why some of them are actually quite high is because I'm going to use it for the wither. If you have a weaker mob, you can use a weaker version of, for instance, the Ender Gate, because for the wither I need more than 2000 FE per tick, and that means I have to use the hardened Ender Gate. But if you're doing cows or sheep or zombies, you're going to need way less energy, so you can just pick the amount of energy you need and save some resources. That means you can just pick the Ender Gate, which is just enough to deliver the energy you're going to need. But yeah, for me, it's the hardened one. And if you want to do wither, you're going to need the hardened Ender Gate for your simulation chambers. So let's place them down. We just sneak right click and add them to our simulation chambers. The last Ender Gate we have is a starter, because we don't really need a lot of energy per tick for our loot fabricator. As you can see, 256. So even the smallest Ender Gate is totally enough to do this. So we again sneak right click. And to quickly explain the Ender Gate UI, if you have never used a Ender Gate, normally this will look something like this. So there will be no energy per tick, and the amount of channels is here dependent on the level of your Ender Gate. So a hardened one has 3 channels, and the normal one has, for instance, only the first channel. Next point, how do we get energy into our channel, right? We don't want it to be at 0, 0. So for that, we need the Ender Cell, which is kind of the hub of each of the channels. So we're going to place down a blazing one because we need the high input and output. In total for the wither, you're going to need 13,000 roughly. And the level below this one is below that limit. So I have to go with the blazing one in my case. So we're going to place it down. And when you open it, you will have, again, multiple channels. This is, again, dependent on the level of the gate or the cell you're using. We're going to focus on channel 3. And again, this one is currently at 0, 0. To add more storage to this Ender Cell, which we have to do, we have to shift left click. And then if I'm hovering over this energy cell, you can see I can add it to this system. And now that way, this one got filled because the cell was already filled up. For my energy source, I'm going to use the creative energy cell just to make this quick and easy for everyone. But normally you would need a energy source which can provide 13,000 FE per tick to run the system. And right now it should all be working. As you can see, the energy is filling up. we can see our processes running, and we can see our items getting put into here, actually directly getting moved out again. And then we have already some generalized predictions, but only one nether star. The reason for that is we have to still set our item. So we're going to click here on the nether star, and as you can see, it's going to slowly but surely empty out the predictions, and we have more and more nether stars. Additionally, however, you will have to make sure that you have some kind of prediction automation. For that, you can use either refined storage or also the applied energistics auto crafting system. It would go overboard if I go into detail now. I think there's tons of videos about that online. Just find a way to auto craft the predictions, and then you are good to go. Now you're fully prepared to loot tons of mobs without lag and without any issues with the hostile neural networks mod. And with that, I wish you all an amazing day.